Chapter 8 The Magical Dairyman. Jessie and Daisy turned to each other and blinked once. Home early? Daisy, shrugging, turned back to her mother. We had a great time, didn't we, Jess? She gave him a sharp elbow to the ribs. Jessie nodded so hard it rattled his brain against his skull. How is Miss Elodie doing? Uncle Joe asked in a strange, flat voice neither of the cousins had ever heard him use before. She's great, Jessie said, staring curiously at her uncle. It's her ankle I'm talking about, Uncle Joe droned. Tell us, is her ankle better? Oh, her ankle, Daisy asked, digging her nails into Jessie's palm. Much better, right? It's much better, she prompted Jessie. Better, Jessie echoed dumbly, and then caught on. Oh, the ankle. It's good. That's good, Uncle Joe said, nodding mechanically. She called to tell us about it yesterday afternoon. I offered to take her to the clinic, but she said that if the cousins could stay and help her off the ankle, all would be well. Yes, indeedy, Aunt Maggie said with a scary intensity. Keeping a sprained ankle elevated is very, 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 very important. Don't worry, said Daisy doubtfully. Everything's fine. Then Aunt Maggie gave her head a quick shake, looked at Jessie and Daisy as if she were seeing them for the first time. Really? That's good. But how did you two get so grubby? You look like you spent the night with the hobgoblins in the coal mines. Jessie was so sure his hair was standing on end when he actually reached up to smooth it flat. We were up weeding, said Daisy. Miss Elodie said it works best by moonlight. That woman's a real character, said Aunt Maggie, with a fond shake of her head. Go grab yourselves a hot shower. Are you hungry? You look hungry. We are, said Daisy. We fixed some porridge and nuts and dried fruit for Miss Elodie, but you know how I feel about porridge. Uncle Joe's face dissolved into a familiar goofy grin. Remember when we all used to call it mush days? He asked. Days could never stomach porridge, even when she was a baby. I remember when you used to spit it clear across the kitchen. Olympic class projectile vomit. Daisy and Jessie grinned, warily at each other, remembering Emmy's own mush-spewing phase not so very long ago. I'll fry you up a mess of eggs and sausage, said Uncle Joe. Thanks, Poppy. We promised to be back at Miss Elodie's later, didn't we, Jess? She, needs us to fix dinner for her. Daisy gave Jessie another elbow. Yeah, said Jessie. She also needs us to get her a book, a big one. That'll keep her off her ankle, said Uncle Joe. You know, said Aunt Maggie, I think it's great that Miss Elodie has such considerate neighbors to help her out in a fix. Jessie and Daisy, nodding quickly, eased themselves out of the hallway. On the way up the stairs, Daisy whispered to Jessie, Miss Elodie must have put some sort of spell on my parents, don't you think? Maybe, Jessie whispered back, but sometimes parents just go weird like that, all on their own. True, said Daisy. After showering and changing into clean clothes, and polishing off 3 eggs, 3 sausages, and 3 English muffins between them, the cousins went back upstairs to visit the professor online. Whether he would be able to help them or not, they still wanted to tell a grown-up about everything that happened the past 24 hours. As soon as his familiar face appeared on the screen, Jessie and Daisy leapt forward eagerly and started telling him about the door in the earth and all that had happened since they had gone through it. The professor listened, leaning back and stroking his beard. At the mention of the golden pickaxe, he sat straight up and said, Now that I can help you with. It's on the barn wall where I left it, hidden in plain sight among my own tools. Jesse smacked the desk and rolled backward, pointing an accusatory finger at the computer screen. You, he whispered, you're the farmer. The magical dairyman, said Daisy in a voice of awe. Daisy and Jesse looked at each other and laughed. Then Daisy turned back to the screen and said, we thought we had made you up, but you're real. In a manner of speaking, said the professor, I've been many things and led many lives, and a dairy farmer was indeed one of them. So let me see if I've got this right, Jesse said. You were the farmer and St. George was pretending to work for the mining company so he could dig up that treasure? Good sleuthing, said the professor, beaming. Daisy asked, so now he's going after the treasure again? It's far more valuable and far more important than a mere treasure. But waste no time in conversation. We must get the golden pickaxe without delay and keep it out of St. George's clutches. With the golden pickaxe, he'll be able to reach the treasure with ease. The pickaxe knows where to dig. Much hangs on your actions, Dragon Keepers. Tread carefully. Jesse turned to Daisy. I guess we have to wake up Emmy. At that, the backdrop behind Professor Anderson burst into a wall of red-hot, roiling flames. The professor leaned forward, the flames reflecting in his eyes. He opened his mouth and bellowed at them. Leave the dragon in her lair and go on alone. The screen hissed and went to blackness. The cousins sat in a stunned silence. Then Jesse said, that guy sure is dramatic. I guess we have to do like he says and let Emmy sleep. She rubbed her face. I'm so tired, I could sleep for 100 years myself. Me too, said Jesse, but we can't sleep yet. We've got Dragon Keeper business. Jesse went into the mudroom and got back on his backpack. He checked the jar to make sure that the worms were still alive. They were quite lively. Then he tossed them out the head of cabbage, which was really stinky, changed the water in their canteen, and packed up a couple sandwiches. Daisy went to the living room and told Aunt Maggie that they were going to the dell, and then to the library later, and to Mrs. Elodie's for dinner. Okay, said Aunt Maggie, but try to be home for an early-ish bedtime. You look tired, both of you. On their way past the rock shop, Uncle Joe shouted through the window, Hey guys, I just remembered the farmer's name. It was Lucas Burton Anderson. We know, the cousins shot back as they ran up toward the dell. Coming down the hill and through the laurel bushes, Daisy tried to picture the wall of the barn and the old rusty tools that had been hanging for decades. Was the pickaxe still there? When they got to the barn, they stood and scanned above the Museum of Magic. The magic shovel was hanging back in its spot, but just above it, slightly to the right, was a perfect-shaped pickaxe silhouette on the wall, with red paint was less faded. It was hanging right there, Daisy said, jabbing her finger at the spot. Jesse sat down on the milking stool and buried his head in his arms. That's what he was doing here yesterday. He ran us out of the way so he could come in here and get the pickaxe. Because, said Daisy, the golden pickaxe knows where to dig. It knows where to dig up the dragon treasure, said Jesse. Don't call it a treasure, Daisy reminded him. The important and valuable thing, Jesse said, lifting his head warily. He probably took it to the cavern. The cavern is his new headquarters, said Daisy. We're going to have to sneak in there and steal it. Everything hangs on our keeping the golden pickaxe out of his clutches. How are we going to do that? I don't know. We'll just be really sneaky, I guess. Maybe he's asleep. Maybe, said Jessie. Maybe he's wide awake and ready for us. I've been thinking, said Daisy, about the ramp. It's about 15 or so feet off the ground of the cavern when you first go in, wouldn't you say? About, said Jessie. So maybe we can lower ourselves in over the side and drop beneath the ramp, where the big book is. We'll hide there and wait for our chance. That could work, said Jessie, unless he happens to be doing something with the book. The ramp has gaps between the boards. We can peek and check first. Okay, Jessie said with a sigh. Let's go. They went across the pasture. Just as they were entering the deep woods, the dryads drifted out of their tree trunks they stood before them. Their forms were even paler in broad daylight. In fact, if you didn't already know what they looked like, you might not be able to see them at all. Only the sashes Miss Elodie had given them were truly visible, floating in the air about 6 feet off the ground. Thanks for dragon sitting, Daisy said to them. It was dirty pleasure, said Lady Aspen. Could you spare a moment of your time? Asked Douglas Fir. We'd like to, but we can't, said Jessie. We're here on Dragon Keeper business, and we can't wait. Someone has heard about you and wants to meet you, said Lady Aspen. It won't take but a minute, we promise, said Douglas Fir. The cousins reluctantly followed the ghost-like forms of dryads as they slipped across the pasture where a big old willow tree grew beside a brook. The cousins knew the tree well. When they were little, it was their pretend castle, but when they got older, they mostly played in the barn. As they drew nearer to the tree, they heard a low wailing sound, like the wind in a willow, only louder and sharper. The sound soon resolved itself into the woods. Good grief, here they come. Oh no, this is terrible. What will they think of me? There now, old fellow, it's not so bad. Help is on the way. Douglas Fir said in a soft, kindly voice, Look here, we brought the children with us, so you can see them with your own eyes. There, in the gnarled trunk of the willow tree, Jessie and Daisy saw a creature that seemed arrested midway between dryad and solid tree form. Its mouth was jagged, cracked, running across the bark of a lower tree trunk. Its large, looming knothole eyes, set just above the mouth, streamed with tears. Go away, he sobbed. He shook loose his hands of green willow from his hair and moped with wet cheeks. Willow, please, said Douglas Fir. Can't you stop weeping at least long enough to say hello to Jessie and Daisy? Hi, said Jessie and Daisy awkwardly. The willow had a face behind two lower branches and howled. Oh no, go away, don't look at me, not now, please, I'm a wreck. I'm a pathetic mess. My leaves are in shambles, my bark is sodden, and I'm in no shape to entertain guests. I'm miserable, can't you see? And fell into another fit, weeping. I get it, Jessie said to Daisy. This is the tree that's holding the hobgoblin queen captive underneath his roots. Right, said Daisy. Of course. Douglas and Lady Aspen both nodded their leafy heads in confirmation. Oh, sure, blame the victim, said the willow. It's not my fault. But it's that wretched St. George. I have no power. I'm nothing but a miserable, weak wreck of a weeping willow. Do you think I asked to have my root ball inhabited by hobgoblin? I don't care if she's the queen. Do you know what it feels to be infested? He shuddered and wept his branches, heaving long green wisps, drifting into the earth like ticker tape at the world's saddest parade. Gee, that's terrible, said Jessie. He knew just how the tree felt. Jessie had once been infested with parasites when they lived in Costa Rica. The doctor there had prescribed a medicine that tasted like skunk soup with mouse turd dumplings. "We're sorry about your trouble," said Daisy, not sounding sorry at all. "We're going to try real hard to help you," said Jessie. "Won't we, Daisy?" "We'll get the pickaxe and free you both and the queen," said Daisy. Instead of comforting the willow, this only gave a fresh ride of tears. "Oh, please don't take the pickaxe to me. I can see it now. I'm to be chomped to the kindling, whittled to wood chips, ground to sawdust, sacrificed to her royal lowness, and the queen of the mud puppies. Say hello to the sacrificial willow. That's me," he wailed. "Alas, alas!" "They aren't mud puppies," Daisy told him crossly. "They're hobgoblins, and they deserve respect." "Oh, really?" said the willow. "I don't see anyone respecting me." "We do," said Jessie. "Don't we, Daisy?" Not very convincingly, Daisy nodded. After standing around, listening to him carry on for a few more minutes, Jessie and Daisy pried themselves away. When they and the Dryads were standing once more outside the willow's drooping canopy, Jessie said, "Well, he certainly lives up to his name." Daisy said, "It's hard to feel sorry for someone who feels so sorry for himself." Thank you for taking the time to pay your respect. All the same," said Lady Aspen. "Believe it or not, it meant a great deal to him." "And to us," said the Douglas fir. With that, the two Dryads went back beneath the canopy of willow leaves to be with their friend. Chapter 9 is called The Fern Brigade.